Hello, today we're going to talk about instructional coaching and why it may not be making the impact that you'd hope for your school and district. Perhaps, like a lot of people, you got excited. You saw this intervention had a huge impact. I know that some of the research we saw early on from Showers and Joyce showed that instructional coaching was better than traditional methods. So, where you had discussion and theory, also training and feedback. They might be useful in raising knowledge and also developing the skills you wanted in your teacher. But when it was actually measured to what was happening and the difference in the classroom, it was very little. But with instructional coaching, they saw huge gains in the transformation of the practice. And so a lot of people started to apply it, but it's very difficult and you have to think about a lot of things when you get your instructional coaches. So today we're going to look at a meta-analysis that'll help explain some of that and then also reflect on some of the different things that might be the obstacles or challenges. I really like Jim Knight's definition of coaching, that a instructional coach is a partner side by side with the teacher who works on both developing instruction and understanding of learning so that students are successful in the classroom. I've always really liked the example too of using I think Chef Gordon Ramsay is very good at coaching. And so the idea is a person that's bringing knowledge, skills, and dispositions to the classroom. And so, for example, a knowledge thing that Gordon Ramsay would teach is about making meatballs is how to get the proper fresh ingredients, how to make them fresh. Also a knowledge thing, maybe you need to keep your menu manageable. Don't make it too big with lots of things where then you have to freeze items and they don't work out so well. Skill is actually the process, so how you actually use different techniques and maybe braising for making your meatballs. And then the disposition is, again, who's your target audience? How are you approaching your restaurant? If you're using that, yes, we use fresh ingredients. We don't rewarm food here. And we also take pride in what we do. And that would be also what an instructional coach does. And it's not just for teachers who are struggling or have issues. The best in the world has a coach. And so the idea of an instructional coach is somebody who can come in and partner with the teacher, think with them, and do job-embedded supports and helps to develop the right kind of learning atmosphere for the students. All right, let's dive into this meta-analysis, and going further, I'll call instructional coaching primarily teacher coaching to align to the meta-analysis and the language within the study.
The full name of the meta-analysis is The Effect of Teacher Coaching on Instruction and Achievement, a Meta-Analysis of the Causal Evidence. And it's by Matthew Kraft, David Blazar, and Dylan Hogan. And I'll put a link in the comments where you can find the full study. So a couple guiding principles around this purpose of the study, of course, is to see the impact of instructional coaching on teacher practice and student achievement. And things that they're considering, of course, is that instructional coaching can have an effect. And the other thing is that we're looking at is traditional professional development is not usually systemically successful for big improvements. So those things as trainings, faculty days, conferences, did not have that lasting effect in the classroom. So they point out at the beginning that there's 3 advantages of doing this meta-analysis study. So in this meta-analysis study, they end up coming with 60 studies about teacher coaching. And the first thing that they believe will really come out in this is that we'll learn a little more, especially through the coding and qualitative study, of exactly what coaching is as a professional development class. The other thing is that a lot of these studies on their own were underpowered. They didn't have enough money and it didn't have enough time. And so by combining this, we'll get a better idea. And then lastly, it's really good for comparing models. And they point out some differences in models that we need to think about deeply. Size of the program, what you pair it with other professional development programs, like maybe teacher collective efficacy. Also, this one's really important, and look for a surprise in this one. What's it like to do it in person versus virtual coaching? And then last, also the dosage, the amount of time. Now, they first wanted to define exactly what they were looking at in teacher coaching, and here's the criteria they came up with. First, they wanted it to be individualized. It had to be the coach one-on-one with the teacher. Next, it needed to be intensive. That means they needed to have some interactions a few times a week. They also wanted it sustained. It needed to be over a term or a full school year. So it was an ongoing job embedded development. Also content specific. It needed to be coaching within the classroom, especially in the area the teacher is comfortable, whether that's grade level or subject. And then also it needed to be focused. So there needed to be certain identified skills aligned to goals for the school and how they were working on improving instruction. Now, this methodology, we won't get into too much, but just so you know, it is a meta-analytical regression method. And so it has robust variance estimation as the model. And of course, they use some inclusion, exclusion, and then really importantly, the coding that is done. Now, after going through this, I think it's a very good meta-analysis. Meta-analysis is arduous, so a lot of times it's very difficult to put it through. I think they use a good model, and the findings really bear out to a lot of my own experience. So I felt comfortable with it. I think one of the first things too, though, like when you want to think about this, what we can take from here, especially to make your teacher coaching most effective, is one, you can't scale too big. In fact, they found if it was over 100 teachers to begin with, you could lose up to 50% of your efficacy of the program. So you want to keep that down. Another thing is the evaluation of the program is very important. You need to do this. So once you've started this intervention, you want to measure it and use formative and summative assessments so you can also tweak it and improve it along the way. And they provide a great list of things to do that. The other thing too, I think to consider in this is, it is multivariate. You have to be really careful in understanding the different things. So some of the surprises though, too, with it, they said that the dosage was not as important as you might imagine. Again, as long as it's, regular and sustained over time. It didn't have to be, 3-hour sessions. Also, another thing too, they found really no difference between in-person coaching and virtual coaching. And this could be really important as we mitigate the cost, because this intervention is costly. I think you'll find that it is also worth the cost, but perhaps doing some of this through virtual could also be a very good way of mitigating all the cost and resources that are involved.
As highlighted in this meta-analysis study, there's a lot of different factors that go into creating an effective teacher coaching program. And so you need to think about these too and what obstacles there might be on both an organizational level and also on a personal level. So, for example, some things on an organization level, you need to make sure that when you do this, that it aligns to some very clear goals and then also strategies that you have set out for the coaches to do, and also for working with your building level principals. Again, you may have to even build the culture and climate for this type of work to happen. And the principals have to be fully involved with this and understand how to work with this particular intervention going forward. Also, you need to consider that it is a very personal thing. It's very much about relationships. So one thing, for example, is how they go in and how they work and teach the teachers, right? Coach the teachers. So a lot of your coaches that you pull out of the classrooms were excellent teachers, and they're very good with pedagogy, but they may not be so good with andragogy, right? They don't understand all the different parts about learning. I've seen a lot of instructional coaches go in to teach teachers, and they teach them like it's in their classroom, and it's not very effective. So you really have to build those skills and knowledge and dispositions in your coaches first of how to do proper coaching. Another issue too I see quite often is that if you get a coach that is at all arrogant or condescending, it's not going to work. It's going to fail. The teachers will not relate to that. They'll pull back, and it won't be very effective in there. So you have to look on both of these kind of levels and see what it might be. In the comments, please list any challenges you've seen with instructional coaching, teacher coaching, whether it's been at an organization level or a personal level. I'm sure it'll create an interesting conversation. And as always, you're leading by example.